Friends, I'm bringing you a reading from Rex Ambler's What is Experiment with Light? It has bearing not only on the prepared message today, but also on Experiment with Light meditation that's actually being explored by our Going Deeper on Monday nights through the month of August. And might be something that you hear more about in the future. But it certainly has bearing on our understanding of early Quakers, our lives as Quakers today, and what it means to really belong in our beloved community. Now, the early Quakers were really quite passionate about what they considered to be reality. We needed to understand it more, says Rex, and with our own modern skeptical questioning, we needed to understand how did the early Quakers find that it was real, their reality. Also, what did it mean to experiment? This, I know, experimentally was something that George Fox had said. Did they, like the new scientists of their time in the 1600s, have practical practices that enabled them to establish truth on the basis of experience? This certainly was the nature of the questions that arose, and that led to serious investigation of early Quaker writing in search of some answers. And the answers discovered were not so difficult once we grasped the language they were using. The truth the early Quakers were after, having been disillusioned by the official teaching of their churches of the time, was that the truth of their lives, that is, the reality of their lives as they experienced it and as they opened up themselves to it, was what they were seeking. And this particular reality of their lives opened out onto the reality of other people's lives, the reality of social and political life, and ultimately the infinite reality called God. Early friends also found they could get access to this reality in a very practical way, and that they could test the limits of its truth for themselves. They had within themselves, they discovered, as had everyone else, a certain awareness of how they lived their lives, which made them feel either good or bad about themselves. This was their conscience, in the broad sense that word meant in the 17th century. It was a feeling that they could be immediately aware of by simply becoming still and silent, and it would rise up within them. And if they took that feeling seriously and paid attention to the reality of their life as it was now being indicated to them, they would begin to see their life differently. They would have to deal, of course, with all sorts of contrary feelings that would have been aroused by the thought that they had done something wrong, or that their life had perhaps had some kind of pretense. This was the inevitable defense of a self that felt under attack, and they would need considerable courage to face it. But their great discovery was that if they let the self quiet down with all its argument and chatter, they would begin to get a clear view of what was really happening in their lives, that something deep within them would show up and show the truth of it all. If they owned that truth, painful perhaps as it might have been, they would find that they had been reconciled to reality and at peace with God. So the first part of this spiritual experiment upon the soul, as William Penn called it, was to try it out for themselves as a method of getting to the truth. Try the silence and the stillness, the patient waiting and the promptings of conscience. It was also then to see what would happen when they embraced the truth of what they saw and put it into practice in their lives. And finally, they could test their insights by sharing them with others who may have had similar insights to confirm or disconfirm what they had said. In this way, everything they said and did could be grounded in experience, and they could have the confidence that they were indeed living in the truth.